Welcome, everybody. Oh, welcome back, Joel. So happy to see you. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to our viewers on Torah Anytime throughout the world. We're so happy that you join us. I'm sorry that you can't partake of the sushi, but you could come live. We're here Thursday nights in BJX and Avenue UK. You're welcome to come for the sushis, the fries, the beer. You have to be of age to drink the beer, so if you're a minor, please don't come for the beer. You can come for the Torah and the sushi otherwise. Okay, the Pasuk says in this week's Parshas, Vayishma Yisro Kohen Midyan. Yisro, the priest of Midyan. You know, it's amazing, the pagan priest of Midyan. By the way, I want to mention that tomorrow is a holiday. Baruch Hashem, it's not a legal holiday, but a lot of people take it very seriously. And it's V-Day, not D-Day, V-Day. V is in Valentine's Day. And I just want to point out that for a Jewish person, what? Oh, Mazel Tov, Alan, Mazel Tov. Everybody in Torah Anytime, we're celebrating tomorrow Alan's birthday. Mazel Tov, Alan. Shavarichas Yom Shalom Tovus. It means healthy, happy.
39 like Czech then.
Yeah, as long as it's 93. So tomorrow's Valentine's Day, and a lot of Jews are going to be celebrating it. And I just want to point out that I feel that it's inappropriate. Why? I'm not a fanatic. Baruch, am I an extremist? No. Okay. So why am I averse to it? Why am I criticizing it? Because it's based on Christian and ancient Roman sources. Saint Valentine's was a saint. And there's different theories about what led to Valentine's Day. Some say that in the Roman times, so they stopped the young men from wedding their lovers. And this Saint Valentine, he clandestinely, secretly married them. So he was mamash moiser nefesh, to marry them despite the Roman oppression, Anyhow, but others actually say that it's based on very pagan sources, not even talking about Christian or Roman source, but actually very pagan, with pagan gods and this mythological Roman gods, so again, this is Avodah Zarah. So I know that it became a Hallmark holiday, very commercial, and just about, buying cards and buying chocolates and roses and all those things. But the fact is, it has the reach, it has the fragrance, and not a positive fragrance. It's shmek, as we say in Yiddish. It's shmek, it smells from something that's not kosher. And therefore, it's better not to do it. Why would you want to associate? Why would you want in any way to show allegiance? Why would you want in any way to align yourself with something that has a pagan source, an Avodah Zarah source? So please, don't observe it, don't celebrate it. If you want to show someone that you love, so wish them a good Shabbos, buy them Shabbos roses, something like that, but not for Valentine's Day. Okay, so we're talking about, it's interesting because it says, Kohen Midyan. So as a matter of fact, some Rishonim say, that's not nice. Yisro was one of the greatest Jews to ever live, to ever walk the face of the planet. And immediately you're giving him a pejorative? You're being condescending. You're deprecating the man, calling Kohen Midyan, the high priest of Midyan. It's like he was, the archbishop or the pope. I mean, that's how celebrated he was. You have to understand, his stature and his status, it was huge. He probably wore the red yarmulke too, But it says that he heard, Moshe, he was the father of Moses, of Moshe Rabbeinu. As Kol Asher Asa Elohim Moshe, whatever God did for Moshe Yisroel, for the Jewish people, Amo, the nation, that God took, despite all odds, they could have been entrapped there forever. Despite all odds, Rabbi Shalom took them out. Zot Rashi, says Rashi, Mashmur Shamoba. What precisely did he hear? The Torah speaks in generality. The Torah tells you that he heard Hoitzi Hashem Yisroel Mitzrayim. So Rashi wants to know specifically, what was the thing that triggered him? What was the thing that sparked, that he got inspired, that he got ignited? He said, Tzedor God. He says that there's a God. That all the pagan gods, all illusions and mirages, and all farces, and all chicanery and nonsense. And it's all one big falschkeit, one big lie. How do I know there's one God? How do you know? So Rashi says, you know what he heard? Kriyas Yamsuf, the splitting of the sea, and the war of Amalek. So I want to show you, remember we speak about always the interface, the interplay, the fusion between Torah Sheb'Ksav and Torah Sheb'al Peh. How does Rashi know this? That was what was inspired, what, did he live behind an autobiography saying, I was once, this really, really not even secular, I was once this terrible pagan, that was living in Las Vegas, and all of a sudden, I had this epiphany. I went to the shir, or I heard a shir on Torah Anytime, and it blew my mind. And now, today, I'm steiging in yeshiva in Eretz Yisroel, become a Baal Tshuva, Choser B'Tshuva. How do we know? How does Rashi know? How does Rashi know what triggered him, what motivated him to change around his whole entire life? 180 degrees. If you believe that the neshama was always pristine, and you go back to your neshama, it's a 360. Because what's the difference in 180? 180 means that you turn around, that's a roundabout, totally different. 360 means you go back. If a Yid, when a Jew comes back to Hashem, that's not a 180, that's a 360. Because the neshama always wanted it. Deep down, the neshama always was craving and yearning for the truth. Yeah. There's a guy, Anthony Flew. He was the world's most vocal and vociferous, most devout atheist ever. They canonized his books on atheism. You know that? From Oxford University and the most prestigious colleges and universities in England. He was the biggest atheist. And one day, I forgot what year it was. It was recently, in the past 15, 20 years. He changed. He said, I'm no longer an atheist. I believe in God. And you know what he did? This takes a man. This takes guts. This takes real temerity. You know what he did? He said, I'm rendering all my books that I wrote, they're all obsolete. They're all false. Everything that I did in my past life is one big lie. Can you imagine that? He was a scholar. He was a researcher. He was he had a doctorate. Dr. Anthony Flew. And he was Moidal Emes. Some say that one of the people that he read the works of Dr. Gerald Schroeder from Eshet Torah. And he was so convinced. He said, there has to be a God. He was in his 80s. So what do all the atheists say? He's demented, he has senility, he has Alzheimer's, right? Remember, if it was a religious man that decided he's becoming an atheist, they would say he finally came to his senses after all these years, right? But because it was the reverse, and now he's saying there's a God, he must have senility. We believe that Zaken, elderly person, the Gemara says, means that you don't get meeker and more timid in your old age, or you don't get more shallow. You don't get less intelligent, you become more intelligent in your old age. Ramosha Feinstein was any less intelligent at 90 when he was 90 years old than he was at 70 years old, 50 years old? No. He was still the Gadol Hador. Rabbi Yashiv passed 100 years old. Rav Chaim Kanievsky's 90s, and they say that he's still sharper. Sometimes it looks like he's dozing, but it just looks like it maybe. Listen, if you learn 22 hours a day, whatever he learns, okay, you'd be tired too, He probably doesn't drink coffee either. Or maybe he does a little, I don't know his diet. So Anthony Flew in his 80s, he gives it all up. That's a modern day Yisro. Anthony Flew was a modern day, I don't know if he's still alive, but if he was still alive, I'd like to meet him. It's a huge thing to be Maidal Emes, to recognize the truth, and to acknowledge all the errors of your past. How many people could do that? Do you know how many companies went under? Talking about Enron and WorldCom. Do you remember those guys? Lehman Brothers. So many companies went under because one person. What about the airline industry? Airplanes now. They show the Boeing planes malfunctioned. There was errors. And nobody wanted to admit it. It's Emes. Moshe Emes is Sarasa. The whole Torah is predicated on truth. If you're not a truthful person, you don't belong to being a Torah Jew. You can't be a Torah Jew. That's it. It's a coin Midian.
Nick Romney. Another true honest man who gave up everything. He gave up his whole life,
All right, Kohen Midian. So he was a priest. So Rashi says that he saw the Kriyas Yamsuf, the splitting of the sea, and he saw Milchemas Amalek. How does he know that, though? So listen to this amazing raya that the Mefarshim say. Vayishma, Yisro heard, Vayishma, Vav Yud Shin Mem Ayin is what? The Shin in the Vayishma stands for Shama, he heard. Mem Ayin stands for Milchemas Amalek. And Vav Yud is what? Anybody know? What's that? Ukriyas Yam. It's all there in the word Vayishma. You hear, Joel? It's all in the Vayishma. One word, consolidated and encapsulated in one word, is everything he heard. That's how it's all in the Torah. It's not that the Torah Shabbat Peh Chas V'Shalom. It's not that the Mechilta is, or the Gemara in Zvachim is based on Gemara Talmud Bavli Gemara Zvachim Tractate Zvachim page 116 Kuf Dezayin. That it's an innovator. No, it's not innovating. It's there. Everything's in the Torah. For Yishma Yisro, this is what he heard. Yisro. Now listen. So we know that he had many names, Yisro. The Rashi says, Shiva Shemos Nikrolo, that they called him 7 names. Ru'el, Yisro, Yisro, Chavev. Why does the Torah call him Yisro? Jethro. Why is he called Yisro? Of all the names, why is he called Yisro? So of course, the Medrash and the Chazal say that because Yeser, through him, a Parsha was added to the Torah. Which is huge. It's an amazing thing. A non-Jew decides to become Jewish. Not only is he recognized as a Jew, but an entire Parsha becomes his. Yeah, you hear the Gewaltigkeit? You hear that amazing, what you could accomplish? The whole Torah is changed. A Parsha is, yes sir, there's another Parsha. Because he decided that he's going to join the ranks of the Jewish people. And he wasn't Stam, Joe Schmo that was living on the street. He was the Kohen Midian. He was the high priest. He was the most prominent, illustrious, prestigious, preeminent, most famous man in his time of the Midianites. The Midianites were a very big, recognized people. You got it? So 1 second. Yisro, say the Mefarshim, that the word Yisro, the reason why it was called Yisro is because Taf Reish Vav. Remember, Yisro is spelled Yud, Saf, Reish Vav. Saf, Reish Vav. Saf is 400, Reish is 200, and Vav is 6. Altogether, it's 606. How did he become different than any ordinary average Gentile? Every average ordinary Gentile is also chayiv in mitzvahs. Also obligated in mitzvahs. Right? Obligated in mitzvahs. Which mitzvahs? There are at least 7 mitzvahs. According to most Rishonim, those 7 mitzvahs incorporate and encompass many more mitzvahs. Those 7 mitzvahs are avos, are archetypes, are primary. And beneath those mitzvahs are many, many under those mitzvahs. Okay? So therefore, he had how many more mitzvahs than the average guy? He had 606 more than 7. So Yisro is Taf Reish Vav for the 606 more that he had. And then the Yud is the fact that he went because he wanted to hear the Aseres HaDibros. Yud is 10. Aseres HaDibros. That's Yisro. That's his name, Yisro. See, everything is there. Just have to look. Just have to spend time learning.
We have a Parshas Balak, and we have a whole Parsha with somebody that's not Jewish also, but it wasn't somebody that converted.
There's a whole discussion about that. Because that proves the divinity of the Torah. Because no one could have witnessed the conversation between Balak and Bilam. It was impossible. Everything else, Moshe Rabbeinu wrote what he saw, or what tradition he got from Avraham and Yaakov. This shows the Ruach HaKodesh, because no one was there to see it. You see? Well, okay, now, the Pasuk says, Vayikach Yisro Choyse Moshe Sipor Eshes Moshe Achar Shilucha, that Yisro brought back Moshe's wife after he sent her out. It means that he divorced her. And he could have become the Kohen, Moshe Rabbeinu, but he lost the kahuna. It was Bashert that he lost the kahuna, and he gave it to his brother Aaron instead. You know why? Because a Kohen cannot marry a divorced woman. That means that if a Kohen divorces his wife, he can never get her back. It's very sad, right? And that's why when a sofer is asked, when a bezdin is asked to administer a get for Mr. Katz or Mr. Cohen, whatever it is, for a Cohen, they have to be very, very deliberate. And they have to be very cautious. They have to very, very painstaking to write it, slowly and cautiously, because once it's a fait accompli, once it's finished, they can never reunite.
A regular Jew could?
A regular Jew could. As a matter of fact, it's a mitzvah for a regular Jew. It's called machzir grushaso, to take back his divorcee. And that's what Amram did. Amram and Yocheved divorced because they're afraid of Pharaoh's edict, and Miriam convinced them that they should remarry. And that's why, by the way, if you look at the Shira, I posed this question on Shal Shus and I was very disappointed. Not one person came up with an answer. You were there. You're guilty. Not one person. Who else was there? What was the question? It says about Shira, it says that Miriam sang a song, and what is it referred to as? As Aaron's sister. Why is it referred to as Aaron's sister? She wasn't Moshe's sister? Right? It says that Miriam sang, and it was Aaron's sister. Why doesn't it say it was Moshe's sister? Why Aaron's sister?
Someone gets precedent.
Could be, very good. But some want to say that, you know why? Is because Moshe was born after the remarriage. So they were together, Aaron and Miriam were together in the first marriage. And Moshe came for the second marriage. So interesting, very interesting. And that's what refers to her as, because she was Aaron's sister all along, all throughout. Interesting, but that's a good chiddush. I like what you said to you. Very good. So, but he lost the kahuna. I'm sorry. We got to be careful. Cohen speaking now.
She was also Moshe's sister throughout Moshe's life.
It's true. It's true. It's an interesting diuk, though. But you should be proud, Gershon. That's your ancestor. That So there's this amazing story. That this happened. That there was a Kohen, Baal Tshuva, who was married, and they were married for a number of years, and they couldn't have a child. And they loved each other dearly. She was his Valentine. How to say that? And despite that, they desperately both wanted to cradle a baby in their arms. They wanted to have a child. And they decided that they're going to have to part ways. It was hard as it was. Now, halachically, even though a man is mitzvah, a man's commanded to have children, but there's certain situations and scenarios where maybe he can't, or maybe it's not possible, whatever it is, okay. So, does he have to divorce her, halachically? So this is based on a Chasam Sofer, a fascinating chiddush, that if a person is going to have terrible mental anguish, mental agony, and be distraught, so how much do you have to pay to do a mitzvah? He's supposed to have children. It's a mitzvah in the Torah. Like any mitzvah essay, you have to have children, right? It's a mitzvah essay. How much do you have to pay to do a mitzvah? So it's a little, right, so a little, no, less, more than that, less, it's a fifth. A fifth. Yeah, mitzvah essay, you have to give a fifth of your money. Not more than a fifth of your money. Of your assets, of your resources, what you have in the bank account. So, the Achronim have a fascinating chiddush, that if you don't have to spend more than a certain amount of money on a mitzvah, then why should agmas nefesh, agony, anguish, being distraught, be worse than spending a certain amount of money? That's right. That's like, so therefore, there's a chiddush here, there's a heter that maybe he wouldn't have to get divorced from his wife, because divorcing his wife would cause so much trauma, so much. In this case, in this situation, though, they decided that they're going to get divorced. And it was very sad. They got, so he gave her the get, and they were crying and crying. Usually they're crying, at a get, a lot of times they're celebrating. Unfortunately, sometimes it's hard to get a get, for the woman to get a get. She finally gets a get, and she goes out and parties, it is traditional at a get. Nobody should know, but it's traditional to wish, the mazel tov. That they should have a good mazel, henceforth, you should each have a good mazel. Listen to the story. Michael, you got to hear the story. Ready? You got to hear this amazing story. So, they get divorced, and then 3 months later, he gets a phone call. This guy, this fellow. Now his name, by the way, his name was Yaakov, but his English and his real name was Jason before he became religious. So she says, so who calls up Yaakov? None other than his ex-wife. And which is a little awkward because they're not supposed to be, they're supposed to be rebuilding their lives independently, dating and getting married. And he says, everything okay? Why are you calling me? And she says, are you sitting down or standing? He says, oh, what happened? She says, well, I think you should sit down. He sits down and she says, I have news for you. You're going to become a father. She was 3 months pregnant.
Right before they got divorced,
It seems
got
so.
pregnant,
Yeah.
why did they get divorced? No, but
She says, listen, they say, Fregnish de Kasha Maisa, right? We know this question's of Maisa. I understood. It's an amazing story. Listen to what happened. So she calls over, she says, you're becoming a father. And he says, this is amazing. He says, we're having a baby. This is amazing. We're having a baby. He says, okay, we're getting back together, Baruch Hashem. And then she says, amazing. And then he says, 1 second. They hit him like a ton of bricks. He says, but I'm a Kohen. She says, what? She says, oh, right, you're a Kohen. What are we going to do now? He says, but we're having a child. He went to his Rav. His Rav said, this is the most difficult Shiloh I ever received. He says, he went to another Rav, this is the most difficult Shiloh I ever received. The consensus was that the only one that could paskin on the Shiloh to say maybe the get wasn't kosher, maybe we could find a loophole because maybe it's that when the get was written there was a mistake made and they poured over the get, they analyzed, meta-analyzed it, every little with a microscope and they couldn't find anything wrong with the get. They go to the great Rabbi Yashiv, the Posek Ador, Rabbi Yashiv. And he says to the fellow, he says to Yaakov HaKohen, he says, listen, Yaakov HaKohen, ain't nothing we could do. Nothing we could do. So Yaakov said, what do you mean? What should I do? He says, listen, the only thing I could recommend to you to do is go to the kosel and daven. Daven your heart out at the kosel. Only Hashem could help with this one. He goes to the kosel. He goes right up to the wall. Western Wall one Friday night. All right, it's a beautiful song, Western Wall one Friday night. It wasn't on Friday night though. And he goes up to the kosel, and he davening with such kavanah, his nebuch, he's pouring his heart out, he's crying and crying. And all of a sudden, someone taps him on the shoulder. And when you're in a reverie, when you're in raptured in he got so shh. The guy tapped his shoulder and said to him, what's the matter? Why are you crying like that? He says, I can't. The man said to him, go to your father. He said, my father? I'm at my father. Father in heaven. No. Go to your father. So he ignores the man. He starts davening and davening and davening and davening. And while he's in the midst of this davening, all of a sudden, taps him again on the shoulder. The same man. And he says to him, go to your father. Doesn't know what to make of it. He goes home. That night he can't sleep. Resounding in his mind is, go to your father, go to your father. He decides that he's going to go home to Texas, where he comes from. He's been estranged from his father, unfortunately. He hasn't seen his father. He goes to visit his father. Comes to the house. His father, for the first time ever, said to him, Yaakov. He never called him Yaakov, he always called him Jason. He didn't like the fact that he became religious. He says, Yaakov, what brings you here? And Yaakov breaks down crying. He says, Daddy, my life is... tells him the whole story. He says, I got divorced. I'm so silly. We have a baby coming. I can't get remarried to her. And his father says to him, Yaakov, there's something that your mom never let me tell you. She swore me to secrecy. But now that she's no longer here, I'm going to tell you. You see, Yaakov, as much as we love you, and you're the most precious thing to us, you're not our biological child. We adopted you when you were a baby. Yaakov, you're not a Kohen. You could get remarried.
might not be Jewish.
You get remarried. That's what happened. So Cohen's not allowed to marry or divorce. Oh, what a tangent we went on, right? Okay.
He might not be Jewish.
No, they're just Jews. No, they Jews.
What you're saying, the mother wasn't?
No, they had a from conversion. They had a No, he was a Jewish baby. It wasn't a Gentile baby. No, I'm sorry. He was born Jewish, but he was adopted. He was born Jewish. They adopted a Jewish baby. Okay, next. And they had two children. One child's name was Gershom, but by the way, it shows you the kayach of tefillah. Of his kashrus to the Rebbeinu Shalom, to the Bas Shefer, connecting to the Rebbeinu Shalom. Nothing is impossible. You don't know. So he had two sons, right? So it says Shema Echad Gershom. The first baby's name was Gershom. Kilmer Gerha Yisi Beretz Nechriya. He says because I am a stranger in my land. I'm an alien. I'm a foreigner. V'Shema Echad Eliezer, and the next son's name was Eliezer, because I was saved from the sword of Paro. All the Mefarshim ask, what's going on here? What happened first? First, was he saved from Paro, or first did he become a stranger in a foreign land of Midian? First, he was a fugitive. He was saved from Paro. So why does he call his first baby Gershom? He should call his first baby Eliezer. No? Why does he call him Gershom? So, the Separno says something very beautiful. The Separno says that when Gershom was born, Moshe Rabbeinu was afraid. He was still frightened that he would be killed. He didn't know if they would ever find him. Even though he was hiding in another country. He was Nebuch. He was living in fear of Paro discovering him. It wasn't until, he says, Eliezer was born, that he was told, Vayamas, that the king of Egypt died. The king of Egypt that was looking to kill him died. And that's when he felt, now he's comfortable, and he's free. He doesn't have to fear for his life anymore, and that's why he called the second son Eliezer, not the first son. That's the Separno. I want to share with you, though, an amazing chiddush from Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz, the Heilige Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz. Listen to what he says. He says the reason why he called the second son, even though it seems chronologically, historically, it's inaccurate, because first he ran away from Paro, and then he was adopted in this new country. So why does he call his first son Gershom and not Eliezer? He says because as long, now listen, you got to hear this. You got to really internalize this. Okay, meditate on this. Listen so carefully to this. You ready? He says, Moshe Rabbeinu was so sensitive. He was so soft. He was so compassionate and so kind. He said, how could I name my baby Vayaslini Micherev Paro, that I was saved from the sword of Paro, when my brothers are still being enslaved and persecuted by this man? I can't do that. Yeah, I'm free, but they're not. And therefore, until he goes to the burning bush, says Rabbi Yonasan Eibeshitz, and he's told that the Jewish people will be redeemed, until then, he doesn't name a child Eliezer, Hashem help me. Because to say Hashem help me, it's impugning the others, that the others weren't helped. What does this teach us? To look out for the plight of others. To become sensitized. To become attuned to how I could be there for others when someone else is in pain. The Shlach Kodesh says that if you look at all the names of the tribes, what they named their babies, the Torah in Parshas Shemos. Here, look, go back in Parshas Shemos. Let's reference Parshas Shemos quickly. Let's go back to Parshas Shemos. What does it say there? It says, Hey, Shemos B'nai Yisrael, these are the names of the children of Israel. Habab Mitzrayim, that were going into Egypt. Reuben, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, Yisachar, Zebulun, right? Okay. Then further. Let's go further. Sorry, it's next here. It's coming up in Parshas Va'era. It repeats now the names. It says Reuven, Shimon. It says Bnei Reuven. Who are the Bnei Reuven? The children of Reuven. It gives you the descendants of Reuven. Then it says Bnei Shimon, and it says. Then it talks about the others, right? But only when it says Ve'ela Shmos Bnei Levi. When it speaks about Levi, it says the word Shmos. By the others, it doesn't say the word Shmos. Says Shlomo Kodesh. You want to know why? Because Levi was the only tribe that weren't part of the persecution. So they could have been, sipping pina coladas and being on lounge chairs the whole time, just relaxing. But what are the names he gave? Gershon, Kahas, Merari. All these names signified the torture. Kahas, Merari, embitterment, being knocked out, being knocked down. Gershon, being a foreigner. Why? Because Levi said, even if I'm not being beaten down, I still want to show with my children, I'm going to give them the names, because I don't want to forget the suffering of my brothers. The Jewish people, Chafetz Chaim says, we're not released until it says, Gam ani shamati nakas b'nei Yisroel. God says, I also hear the cries of the Jewish people. God says, I also hear? What do you mean, I also? Who heard it first? So the Chafetz Chaim says, Hashem said, until the Jewish people cry for one another, I'm not going to listen to them. Gam ani shamati. When I see that they heard the cries of their brothers, then I also hear. Something very, very important for us to keep in mind. Rabbi Yitzchok, Moshe Rabbeinu did not name his child Eliezer, that God saved me, because if my brothers are still in trouble, I can't say that God saved me. That's so deep. Imagine that. But one more interpretation from the Pardes Yosef. Listen to what he says. He says, Moshe Rabbeinu calls Gershom right away, because as soon as I came to America, Moshe Rabbeinu said, not America, Midian. Listen to what I'm saying. America was the golden Medina. Everybody said, oh, America. Everybody, when they come off the boat, as soon as they came on the boat, off the boat to America, you know how many Jews just went ahead and threw their yarmulkes and showed their bald spots? Yeah? What do you think a yarmulke was invented for? For a Jew to hide his bald spot. You don't need Rogaine. What's it called? Rogaine? No. You don't need Rogaine. You have a yarmulke. Just wear. Even if you have a bigger bald spot, you wear a bigger yarmulke. That's all you do. You wear the Yemenite yarmulkes, whatever it is. Okay, that's all we have to do. They took the yarmulkes, they threw it off. As soon as they got to America, it's the land of the free. I don't need any more Yiddishkeit. Goodbye, Charlie, to Yiddishkeit. Most Jews did that. Most Jews, unfortunately, did that. Tragically, did that. They say, in America, you could make gold. It's called the Golden Medina, the country of gold. And Moshe Rabbeinu was afraid of the same things. He says, I am naming my baby. Anytime my baby makes trouble, I have to say, Gershom, get over here, right? And when, you have to always have a little shorter name for the kid, right? Because you can't say Gershom, it's too long, right? So you call him Ger, get over here. Ger, what does Ger mean? Stranger, right? So you always remember, I'm a stranger in this land. All right, he says to his wife, Tzipporah, honey, Tzipporah, sweetheart, where's Gershom? And Tzipporah says to Moshe, where's Gershom? They're always talking about Gershom. That's the most, significant subject in their home. Always remembering, don't forget, you're a Gershom. Don't forget, you don't belong in America. You know what? I want to share with you something very scary. Most people, we're too comfortable here. We're very grateful, the greatest country on earth. America, gewaldig, right? But Eretz Yisroel, that's our country. And every Jew has to say to himself, why am I not living in Eretz Yisroel now? I could just get on a plane within 10, 11 hours, 12 hours, whatever it is. I could be in Eretz Yisroel. Eretz Yisrael, Baruch Hashem, is a relatively safe place. You could succeed over there too. Why am I not living there? What's my heter? You have to have a heter. What does Rav Moshe say about it? How do we possibly? Do we possibly like the Rambam? Do we possibly like the Megillah Esther? Do we possibly like the Raiva? Do we possibly like the Ramban? How do we possibly? I have to ask. It's a Shaila. I have to ask. Why am I here? I'm entitled to go over there. I'm allowed to go over there. I have every right to go over there. For the first time in thousands of years, it's the easiest thing to go. Pick up and go. You're nefesh b'nefesh. You have these flights that go there. And they even help you financially. They give you a stipend, whatever it is. They help you get a job. Why am I not there? Do you know that in the time of Ezra Sofer, after the Jews were exiled from the first Beis HaMikdash, Nebuchadnezzar came and he destroyed the first Beis HaMikdash. The first time in almost 1,000 years, remember the Jewish people were entrenched in Eretz Yisroel. They were there almost 1,000 years, they were secure over there. And Nebuchadnezzar came! And he drove them out. He expelled them and killed almost hundreds and hundreds of thousands of Jews. And the Jews were totally expelled from Eretz Yisrael. What happens? 70 years pass. It's time for the Jews to go back. They get permission. Trump lets them, Koresh lets them go back. He says, go back. I'm giving Yerushalayim to you. Go back. The Temple Mount is no longer the Arabs. Wait, that's happening soon. Sooner or later, if he gets a second term, it's probably on his agenda. No more Temple Mount for the Arabs. One second. So Koresh, it wasn't Trump that said it, Koresh said it. And where does Koresh, by the way, where does Koresh called God's appointed one? In Yeshaya Navi Perak Memhed, chapter 45. By the way, Trump is the 45th president of America. Interesting, right? Okay, interesting. Okay, but anyhow, we're not going to talk about that. But anyhow, the fact is that you think about it. So Koresh, he says, Jews, you do whatever you want. You have Eretz Yisrael, it's back, it's yours. You know, the Beis Hamikdash is yours. And he points, and Ezra is this Navi, the Sofer. Ezra is the one that tells the Jews, come back, come back, come back. We're not just talking about a land. This is your land. You're the baby returning back to your mother. So he goes, he tries to encourage. His job is to convince the Jews to go back. He goes to the Jews in Brooklyn, in Germany. They were ready. Remember, they went far away. So they went to Speyer and Mainz and Worms. He says to Jews, he says, the president, the king, Donald Koresh, whatever his name is. By the way, you know what the Gemara says about Koresh? Gemara says that he was called a dog. That's what it says. He was called a dog. Why? There's a whole story, a little obscene. He was a very immoral man, Koresh. Very immoral. But Hashem appointed, for whatever the reason, Hashem chose this immoral guy to be the one that he's going to be the facilitator for Mashiach for the next Beis Hamikdash. We don't understand Hashem's ways. What's absolutely fascinating is that when Trump announced the deal of the century, what did Mahmoud Abbas, Yimach Shemo, what did he call Trump? Dog, the son of a dog. You think that's a coincidence? I don't think so. Right out of the playbook. Right out of it. So what happens? Think about it. Ezra goes to recruit the Jews back to Yerushalayim. It's a mitzvah. And what do the Jews say? We like living in Flatbush. We like living in Worms, in Mainz, Germany. We're not leaving. Can you imagine this? They're probably from Yidden. They were religious Jews. They said, we're not leaving. And Ezra was devastated. He said, how could you turn me down? It's not turning me down. How can you turn God down? You know how many Jews went back to Yerushalayim when they got permission to rebuild the Beis Hamikdash? Only 42,000 Jews and change. 42,360. That's it. What an injustice! What a travesty. This is terrible. So I want to share with you, I think the Meshech Chochmah says it. I would never say such a thing. But a gadol said it. Is if you look at history, when the Crusades came, May 27th, if I'm not mistaken, if I remember my history right, I think it was May 27th, 1090, maybe I wrote it down. I think 1096. Where was the first place the Crusaders went and killed almost 1,000 Yidden in Nebuch? And the Crusaders didn't just, they were cruel, barbaric. Where was the first place they went? They went to Mainz and Worms. I think the Meshech Chochmah, I think he's the one that said it. He said, the same place where the Jews said, we're comfortable, we're not going back to Yerushalayim, to Eretz HaKodesh. Eretz HaKadosh. That's where the Crusades went first. That's Rabban Shalom's revenge. They were killed. Says the Parshas Yosef, Jews, be careful. Be careful. If you have an opportunity to go to Eretz Yisrael and you don't, be careful. That's Gershom. That's why he says Moshe Rabbeinu calls it Gershom. I am reminded perpetually that I have a home, that God has a land, and I better be careful. One more chiddush, because I see it's getting late. Unfortunately, we're not going to cover all the material that I wanted to cover. Maybe we will. Shnei bonea sheshem ha'echad Gershom. She has 2 children. Shem ha'echad Gershom, v'shem ha'echad Eliezer. The syntax is wrong. Let's just say Shem what? Exactly. Shkoch, very good. Say Shem ha'echad Gershom, v'shem ha'sheni Eliezer. The first one was called Gershom, and the second one's name was Eliezer. All right, everybody understand the question? Yeah. Verstehe. Yeah. Verstehe gut. It's a good question. It's a good question. What's going on here? So listen to Parshas say that Moshe Rabbeinu was a pedagogue. Moshe Rabbeinu knew how to do chinuch habanim. To say Shema Echad, that the first one was called Gershom, V'Shema Sheni Eliezer, and the second one is Eliezer, would mean that one child is subservient, that one child is secondary to the other child. You know what it says? By the carbon tamid that we bring every morning and afternoon in the Beis HaMikdash, the daily offering, Es hakeves ha'echad, says the one sheep. Then it says Ves hakeves, what does it say? Hasheni. When you're dealing with animals, when you're dealing with sheep, you could have a number 1, you could have a number 2. When you're dealing with children, it's Shema Echad, it's Shema Echad. There's no Sheni. You have to treat every child like they are your world. And therefore, every child is the Echad, is the Eintz and Eintzika, as we say in Yiddish, is the one and only. Every child is the Echad, is the exclusive, is the unique one. They say about the Chavetz Chaim, the great Chavetz Chaim. They wanted to know how his mother gave birth. What did she do special to produce the Chavetz Chaim, the greatest tzaddik in generations, Chavetz Chaim? And she said, I have no idea. But they kept on prying, and they kept interrogating her. And she said, she said, my mother told me before I got married, she said, let me give you a little advice. I'm going to give you a Tehillim. A Tehillim refers to a little book of Tehillim. Cry your heart out for your child. Daven and daven and daven for your child. Every child you have, love them, cherish them, daven for them. Shema Echad. You have parents? Appreciate your parents. Love your parents. Cherish your parents. Biggest mitzvah. One of the Rishonim say about the mitzvah Kiruv Avim that it's chamura shebe chamura. It is severe of severe. The most holy of holies. The mitzvah of kibbut avim. Kibbut avim, respecting, honoring your mother, father. If you're zoicha to that, if you're not, even when they're not alive, you can still honor them. It says if you learn Torah on Shabbos, especially on Shabbos, in Mechadesh, you come up with the Chiddush, you learn the Parsha, you come up with an idea that's unique, you bring great aliyah to the neshama. Tremendous aliyah to the neshama. Tremendous elevation and ascension for the neshama. Every time you give tzedakah, you write out a check, you give cash, whatever it is, and you do it in the memory of your parent, you give them an aliyah's neshama. Tremendous aliyah's neshama. You do chesed for somebody, you give them an aliyah's neshama. So remember, Shem ha'echad. Every child to treat like the one and only. That's what we learn out from Moshe Rabbeinu. Okay, so there's a lot more material to cover, but Baruch Hashem, we're out of time. So I encourage everybody to please spend time reviewing the Parsha in entirety. And this Parsha has a Aseres Dibros in it. Go through the Rishonim, go through Achronim. Hafach ba v'hafach ba. Delve into it as much as possible. You'll see how much joy and how much pleasure you'll gain from it. So, shkach, everybody, thank you for listening and thank you for coming. And please stay tuned. If anybody has any questions,